Take the testament in your right hand and read the oath aloud.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I give to this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Dr. James Brown?
I am.
Ruth Harris was in your care on the night in question.
She was.
Tell us exactly what you told Harris, Dr. Brown, after you'd examined his child.
I told him his daughter was dangerously ill. She needed a blood transfusion.
And what was Harris's reply?
He said no.
And what did you say then?
I said that she hadn't a chance unless I gave her what she needed. Red blood cells.
Did Harris understand what you were telling him?
Yes.
So when he refused to allow you to give his child the transfusion, he knew he was condemning her to death. What happened then?
He came into the ward to see his child. I asked him again to allow me to save her life.
What was Harris's answer?
He repeated, no.
That was his final word.
Yes. He'd already signed a declaration accepting full responsibility for his decision.
My lord, I now produce the declaration signed by Harris. Is that the declaration?
Yes.
My lord, that will be Exhibit 1. I told you in my opening address. We have only 2 exhibits. The second is Ruth Rosemary Harris's death certificate.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
You are Sister Dora Young,
Yes,
a state-registered nurse on the staff of the East Durham Memorial Hospital.
yes,
Were you in charge of the children's ward on the night of Saturday, January the 9th?
yes,
Were you there, sister, when Mr. Harris came to look at his little girl?
yes.
Will you describe the scene, please?
He came to the foot of the bed and stood there and looked at her.
How did the child look?
Her eyes were closed and she was very still. White, too. She'd lost a lot of blood.
What happened then?
Dr. Brown asked him again. He said there wasn't much time left. He said the child would die. Really, there wasn't any need. Anyone could see she was dying.
And what did Mr. Harris say?
He said no.
Where was he standing?
At the foot of the bed.
Where he could see the child?
Yes, he never moved.
What happened then?
He left the ward. It wouldn't have been any good him staying. He would just have gone on saying no until the child died. And she did.
Who was there when Ruth died?
Dr. Brown and me and Mrs. Harris.
The child's mother?
Yes.
Why was she there?
Mrs. Harris came back. She changed her mind. It's too late then, much too late.
One last question, sister. When Mr. Harris stood at the foot of the bed and looked at his child, are you quite sure he knew what Dr. Brown was telling him?
Oh, yes, he knew. But he still said no.
Thank you, sister.
Any questions, Mr. Kent?
No. That is the case for the Crown, my lord.
Thank you, Sir Humphrey. Perhaps this is a convenient time to adjourn, Mr. Kent.
As your lordship pleases.
Members of the jury, we will now adjourn. Please be back in your places by 2:15. Very emotional atmosphere.
Yes, Judge. Sir Humphrey certainly played on the nurse to good effect.
Unnecessary. The evidence of the doctor and the declaration Harris signed was sufficient. He caused the child's death, so he's guilty of manslaughter. No matter what his motive or state of mind, that's the law. But my experience is, in cases of this sort, juries don't want to know the law. They want to know the man.
They've got a string of character witnesses, of course.
Quite useless. Only Harris himself can decide the case. Whichever way it goes, there's a weakness here. No single man should be allowed to face the responsibility of the decision that Harris faced. A man can only carry so much. That's why he created the state to shoulder the heavier burden. There should be a legal curb on parents' powers. Then Harris would never have been placed on the rack like this. I find this a very disturbing case. I could bear it more easily if Harris were a fool. If he loses what sustained him, God help him.
I think your lunch will be ready, Judge.
Oh. All right, Frank. Go ahead. Now, they stripped the case down to facts. And the bare facts are the last thing we want. Now, we've got to convince the jury that Harris's decision was dictated by his conscience. As for testimony about his character, well, Teddy's father will praise him for saving his son, and there are a few more friends.
Are you calling the fellows that went shirty members of his sect, father?
No, no more cranks, no. No, to my mind, there's only one thing to do. Chuck them all overboard and put up Harris.
There's always a risk to put the prisoner in the box.
Harris is already overboard. He's only got one chance. To sink or swim on his own integrity.
Tell me what you think.
About what?
John Harris.
His action guilty as hell. His reason innocent as heaven itself.
You know, I wanted Hillary Pearson. I'm glad we got to you. Put him up, Kent. Put John Harris in the box.
Silence! Mr. Kent.
May it please your lordship. Members of the jury, this is, as you must certainly feel, an important case, both from the public and Harris's point of view. And it's a tragic case, whichever way you look at it, because it concerns the death of a little girl. A death that was caused by her father. Oh, we don't dispute the fact, and I repeat the fact, that Harris caused the death of his daughter by omission. But that is not the issue. Harris is on trial for the heresy of setting aside medical knowledge for a religious belief. In 1689 was passed the Toleration Act, which was the beginning of the full rights that man enjoys today. In law, in this country, a man may worship as he pleases. Harris chose a set of beliefs. There's no secret about them. They constitute a general, recognized faith practiced by thousands and thousands of people all over the world, and the state allows it. A great deal has been made by the Council for the Crown of the declaration that Harris signed. But if the law required him to sign it, then I submit it presupposes a right of choice. Members of the jury, I'm not going to weary you with a lot of unnecessary witnesses. You're here to understand why Harris behaved as he did, which constitutes innocence and not guilt. Then you must know the man. And that is why you must meet him and hear him and judge the extent and sincerity of his beliefs. I call John Paul Harris, and only John Paul Harris.
To affirm? Yes. Read the affirmation from the card.
I, John Paul Harris, do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You're John Paul Harris.
I am.
Was Ruth Rosemary Harris your daughter?
Yes.
Did you love her?
Yes.
Did you love her when you refused the blood transfusion?
I never stopped loving her. I love her now.
No. Ruth is dead, Mr. Harris.
To be with God is not to be dead.
Will you do your best to speak up, Mr. Harris? What did you say?
I said to be with God is not to be dead.
How do you make that out?
By the evidence of the Bible and the example of Jesus Christ.
How deep is your faith, Mr. Harris?
It's what I am.
Who taught it you?
My father,
Who taught him?
his father.
With respect to my learned friend, Harris's religious convictions are not under dispute. We know the details of his faith. We understand them and their consequences only too well.
My lord, I'm trying to establish that Mr. Harris's faith constitutes his conscience. May I then remind the court that a man may reasonably and nobly follow the dictates of his conscience. There's no guilt there.
Mr. Kent, I I don't want to stop you from behaving and speaking in the way you decide may be best for the defendant. And if it will assist you, I shall direct the jury that the defendant is perfectly entitled to his own beliefs. But that is, of course, a very different matter from omitting to fulfill the duty laid down by statute which he had towards his tribe.
I oblige you, Lordship.
With respect, Your Lordship, I'm endeavoring to show the jury what Mr. Harris considered his duty. Mr. Harris, what did you consider your paramount duty to Ruth that night at the hospital?
To protect her everlasting life.
How did your action achieve that? Now tell the jury in your own words, Mr. Harris.
We live by the literal word of the Bible. We believe in its prophecies and look forward to the reward of eternal life on a perfect earth if we follow God's law, in which it is written, "You shall eat the blood of no manner of flesh."
And you interpret that to apply to blood transfusion?
Yes. In the original Hebrew scriptures, the word eat means to absorb into the body. In transfusion, blood is taken into the body.
If you had agreed to a blood transfusion, what do you believe would have happened to your child?
By deliberately trying to prolong Ruth's earthly life in that way, we would have sacrificed her chance of resurrection and everlasting life in a perfect world.
Why do you believe Ruth would have been punished for a decision that was not hers but yours?
Because it is written that the sins of the fathers shall be visited upon the children.
On what specific grounds do you base your belief?
On the written word.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Harris, I want the jury to understand your motives for the decision you took. Now, will you listen very carefully to what I have to say and answer us carefully? We're dealing with very difficult theological issues, so I'll put my questions as simply as possible. Now, on the night in question, were you guided solely by your religious principles?
Yes.
Is religion a selfless thing?
Religion's a personal thing. I think it should be selfless.
You heard Dr. Brown's evidence?
Yes.
Is there any single part of it with which you disagree? Did it all happen as he said?
Yes.
How old was your child?
8.
Was she a happy child?
Yes, very.
Did you know her well? Ruth, did you know her well? Did she spend much time with you?
Yes, we went everywhere together.
A devoted family.
Very devoted.
Was she a religious child? Ruth, was she a religious child?
Yes, I think.
Think. What do you mean, think? Was she or wasn't she?
Ruth was a good child.
You say that your father taught you your faith.
He did.
Did you teach that same faith to Ruth?
Yes.
Did she understand? Did she understand what you were teaching her? Ruth, did she understand?
Well, how could I know? She was only 8.
Oh, but you behaved as if you did know. What was your wife's religion before she married you?
Church of England.
Church of England. The mother changed her religion, then why not the daughter? I put it to you, Harris, that Ruth might have grown to womanhood and shed your faith like an outworn skin. By your own admission, she was happy. She enjoyed her temporary life. But you didn't pause to think that that little girl of 8 years old might want to cling to this world. You hurried her into the next.
No.
Not no, Harris. Yes.
No, no!
In my submission, you didn't take in what was being said to you. You weren't really thinking. You relied on a miracle to save Ruth. And that's the truth. Well, the miracle didn't happen, but you risked her life. You put your personal faith before her welfare, and you let her die. You let Ruth die.
Mr. Harris, face the jury, please. Do you miss Ruth?
Every moment.
You miss her, you loved her, yet you willingly gave her up to God. Why? Tell the jury why.
He's eternal. Everlasting. His goodness is infinite. There's nothing comparable on earth.
You mean to you heaven is a very real place?
Yes.
As real as your own living room?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. My lord, that's the evidence of the defense.
What's the matter, Clyde?
Hot in there.
Well, courts are always hot. Even in winter, everybody sweats.
I'm glad that part of it's over. I couldn't have taken much more.
You know, you're like all hotheads. Once you see the results of your clamoring, you want to pull out.
I'm not sure now if crucifying Harris is the right answer.
A bit late for that, isn't it? Anyway, the judge gave the right answer. In law, Harris neglected the child, and that's manslaughter. Let's hope Harris didn't affect the jury the way he affected you, or we're sunk. You're very quiet, Brown. Does the real thing disturb you, too?
The real thing for me is still that child's death.
And what's on your mind?
Harris, he's a sick man. He hasn't slept for nights, and that shock in there didn't help.
What shock?
He saw himself.
You mean he realized it was a fake?
No, I didn't mean that. Harris believes, all right. He believes in God the Father. But he found out something in the dock that he's been trying not to face.
What? Jury coming back, Mr. Clyde.
Silence!
Members of the jury, are you agreed upon your verdict?
We are.
Do you find the prisoner at the bar, John Paul Harris, guilty or not guilty upon this indictment?
Not guilty.
You find him not guilty. And that is the verdict of you all?
It is.
Let him be released.
No, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. He told the truth. I saw myself as Abraham when God tested his love. Told him to sacrifice his son, only God sent an angel to hold back Abraham's knife, and I thought he'd do the same for me. I never really believed she'd die. I wasn't thinking about Ruth's afterlife. I was thinking of a miracle to keep her alive. I sacrificed her. I sacrificed Ruth, and I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
Bailiff's office, where is it, please?
Over there, sir.
Want to see Harris. Quickly, please.
Go on, there's him at the back, through there.
I've got to pay for what I've done. I killed her. I killed her.
Bring her back to life again.
I trusted God blindly not to take Ruth away from me. I can never redeem what I've done.
Your God forgives, doesn't he?
Telling me to pray.
Yes.
Don't tell me you've had a change of heart.
Oh. Now, what I did, I do all over again. I can't bear to see life wasted. So I want to save yours now.
You're too late. I died in that courtroom.
It's too easy. Go on, Lily. Find your God again, and this time, don't load him with the whole responsibility.
You could have saved Ruth. I stopped you.
Yes, could have saved her. Can save you now.
John. Thank God. Come home.
Ruth would always stand between us.
We must learn to live with that. John?
Let him go.
come back. He must come by himself.